Hi everyone, it's Helen from Heritage Organic Seeds, and today we're going to do the sow along for the beetroot seeds that were in our March subscription box. So the variety is Jannis, as you can see, and in the box you received your insert that had the information about the variety, and on the back we had our sowing and growing instructions. So let's get sowing. So the instructions say we want to sow our beetroot seeds from spring to midsummer. So I would recommend that you successfully sow these over the next couple of months. So don't sow the whole packet in one go right now. Keep a few back and then just keep making a few extra sowings as we go. And the instructions tell us that we can direct sow our beetroot or we can start it off in modules. I'm going to start mine off in these module trays just purely because I find it easier to start things off in trays, and then when you're so busy working, you can just pop outside in the morning when you're making your cup of coffee and just check over on your seedlings. I just find I have more control that way, but you can also sow them outside direct into the ground as well if you prefer, if that suits you better. So if you direct sowing, you want to warm up your soil first using a fleece or a cloche, just because it is still cold. I know that the weather's deceiving today with this glorious sunshine that we're having, but it is still very cold out, so the soil is still going to be cold as well. So you want to try and warm that up a little bit first before you sow your seeds, because I say this every single month at the moment, you don't want to sow seeds into freezing cold wet soil because they're just going to rot. They're not going to germinate. It's not going to help you at all. So make sure your soil is nice and warm, and then you're going to make a little shallow drill with your fingers, and then just scatter your seeds into that drill a few centimeters apart, cover it up with a very light layer of soil, and then water it in, and you're good to go. And then if you're going to sow undercover in modules like me, we're going to fill our module tray with compost, and then we're just going to make a little dimple into each cell, not too deep. So I'm going to use this whole module tray for all of our March seeds apart from the basil, because the basil I'm going to germinate that inside. So I'm just going to do 4 rows of the beetroot to get me started. This compost, I know I'm outside sowing the seeds, but the compost has been pre-warmed. I've had it indoors so it could get to room temperature. Just again, we don't want to sow our seeds into freezing cold, wet soil. So it has been brought up to room temperature just to give the seeds a little helping hand. And it is totally up to you how you want to do this. It depends how much beetroot you want, how much you enjoy it. I absolutely love it though. So you can either sow 1 seed per cell, and that is going to give you bigger bulbs as you grow your beetroot on, or you can sow 3 or 4 seeds per cell, which is what I'm going to do, and then we'll be able to just plant those out into clusters. They're growing with their friends, we'll be able to plant them out into clusters. Yes, we'll probably get the actual bulbs will be a little bit smaller than if we'd sown them individually, but it's just how I like to grow it, and then we'll just get some nice delicious clumps of beetroot. So you might just want to do a mixture of both and do a couple of rows with a single seed and a couple of rows multi-sowing 3 or 4 seeds in each cell. I'll let you decide what you prefer. Maybe try both and just see which one gives you the biggest, or if there's even a huge difference. The whole thing with gardening, it's what works for you. Don't worry about what everybody else is doing. Experiment, have a go. What works for you? What do you prefer? So like I say, I'm going to just do 3 or 4 seeds in each cell. So the beetroot seeds aren't too small, so they're quite easy to handle. Pop 3 into each cell. I also think if you multi-sow, it just helps save space, doesn't it? And at this time of year, when our seed sowing really starts to ramp up a gear, any extra space that we can grab is just much needed. And if you don't have a greenhouse and you don't want to direct sow, just try sowing a few seeds with a little seed tray and keep that inside. It's really not rocket science. Just have a go, see what works for you, what you prefer. So we've got our 3 seeds per cell, and then we're just going to cover with a light layer of compost. So just make sure that compost is nice and crumbly between your fingers, so you're not adding more clumps to the top. The general rule for covering your seeds is to cover the seeds at least as deep as the seed is wide, if that makes sense. So the beetroot seeds are quite thick, so I'd maybe say about 1/2 centimetre of soil on the top if you're not sure. Again, it's not rocket science. Don't do them too deep. Just scatter a thin layer of soil. That is all there is to it. And of course, don't forget to mark your seeds, because you might think that you'll remember what you sowed where. I promise you, you won't. Even the best gardeners forget what they sowed. So I've just taken my lollipop sticks that were in the subscription box, and I've just written the variety and the date, just so that I know when I sowed my beetroot, and just pop those in like that. And then just give it a light water. So your beetroot needs temperatures of around 8 degrees Celsius to germinate, so not too high. So I'm just going to keep this module tray in my greenhouse at home, where I'll get lots of sunshine during the day, and that should be fine just to get those going. And we're just going to grow them on for a little bit, and then when the seedlings are large enough to handle, we're just going to take those out of each individual cell, just pop the cell out, and then transplant that whole cell into the ground about 10 centimeters apart. So hopefully, if the weather stays like this, it's not going to be too long before these go into the ground. And then again, that's just going to free up so much space as the weather warms up. Do make sure that you harden off your seedlings before they go into the ground. We recommend that for any seed that's been grown either inside or in the greenhouse. Hardening off will just help them acclimatise to the new growing conditions, and it just means that we're going to take them outside in the morning, pop them back inside or in the greenhouse in the evening. Do that for a few days, maybe around about a week if you can, and they'll just get used to the different kind of temperatures during the day. They'll get used to wind. They're just going to get used to the elements in general, and it just helps to prevent them going into any kind of shock when you do plant them into their final growing positions. Once they're in their final position, we're just going to keep the area weed free and keep our beetroot bulbs well watered over the summer. And then, all being well, we should be able to start harvesting our beetroot from around about July and on into the autumn. So as I said before, do keep successional sowing your beetroot. Set a little reminder on your phone if you need to, and then just keep the process going, so you've always got some fresh, delicious beetroot bulbs to enjoy over the summer and into the autumn. I hope you've enjoyed this sow along video. If you have any questions at all, as always, please do feel free to reach out, and I'll be more than happy to help.